Hello, my name is Shelby and I work in student counseling services here at Tarleton. As part of our mission to provide services to students, I wanted to reach out and talk about a topic that's been on my mind a lot lately: juggling responsibilities during a global pandemic. Are there really ways to change our thoughts and behaviors to keep up with an ever-changing world? The answer, absolutely yes. A question I've been asking myself recently: how am I expected to remain motivated to do certain tasks when my world feels like it's unraveling? I can only imagine other people might be experiencing these thoughts as well. I've also talked to people who are dealing with the same thing in relation to studying for classes, exams, and managing their time. Although I get constant, and I mean constant, support and validation from my loved ones, I still find that I sometimes struggle to cope. Coping for me normally looks like having my tomorrow planned out to avoid any last-minute anxiety, knowing a basic time frame for completing tasks so that I don't fall behind, and having all the right tools I need to complete said task. However, as we know, things are changing daily, and this means that normal coping skills might not be as helpful as they used to be. I started seeing signs that I needed to adjust the way I manage my time so that I can still stay on top of my work and keep the anxiety in check. Some of the things I started noticing that told me I needed to adjust my coping skills were things like overeating, getting upset over things that normally wouldn't bother me. My work and home life boundaries were starting to dissolve, and honestly, an overall feeling of being grumpy. Once I noticed these thinking and behavior patterns, I set out to make a change because I know I don't want to see these thoughts and behaviors in my daily life. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to touch on emotions related to the COVID-19 pandemic and how that might be affecting our thoughts and behaviors. I'm then going to get into behavioral changes and ways to strengthen our coping skills and self-care. First things first, since this presentation is being brought to you by Student Counseling Services, I want to do a quick check-in with ourselves and see if we can separate any stress related to schoolwork and stress that might be related to COVID-19. This could look like just sitting back and taking a deep breath and getting our thoughts more organized, or it might look like taking an inventory of physical, mental, and emotional ways that we are feeling stress. An example: if I feel like I have a pretty good handle on my stress, but I've noticed that my lower back has been giving me problems that only started last month with no other reasonable cause, I might consider that a physiological reaction to stress from the COVID-19 pandemic. Common emotions I've been hearing from people struggling to cope with the pandemic include fear, panic, feeling completely out of control, anxiety, anger, depression, suspiciousness of others, concerns for family, concerns for healthcare workers, distrust, doubt, paranoia, disinformation, like no matter what I do, I can't seem to gather all the information, powerlessness, maybe not being sure what the right thing to do is. Do I go out and fulfill my social connectedness, or do I stay in and ensure that I'm not a carrier for the virus and that I don't infect somebody else? Another emotion is, cabin fever. These are all wonderful examples of how complex humans are, but at the same time, we are all experiencing normal reactions to a rapidly changing world. Also, if you notice, many of those intense emotions I just mentioned are sometimes the norm for people who might be struggling with things like inconsistent study skills or less than optimal time management. I know I experienced anger, anxiety, powerlessness, and doubt when I was in school, trying to manage my time between studying for exams, working, self-care, time with my friends and family, and the list goes on and on. So I want you to take a few minutes to think about your day-to-day experiences with stress. Where do you normally feel stress in your body? Have you noticed an increase in physical, mental, or emotional pain over the last couple of weeks? Or maybe your stress level has been pretty consistent, well within the usual range you've felt for the entirety of the semester or even previous semesters. Now that we might have a better idea of where our stress is coming from, we can really hyper-focus on stress related to schoolwork. Oftentimes, fear, anxiety, and other intense emotions have underlying causes. At the root of all that anxiety might be a perception of not being in control of our lives, and that's just one example. Another example might be a fear of failure or a fear of disappointment. I'm going to spend more time on this a little bit later, but the most important takeaway is that these are very natural and common emotions and thoughts. Nobody wants to experience failure or disappointment, real or perceived. Thankfully, there's a silver lining in the storm clouds. We have the power to change our thoughts and behaviors. Yes, this might seem overstated, but it's true. In fact, some people have gotten this down to a science. If we commit to mastering our own thoughts and behaviors, we'll likely see an increase in feeling like we are in control of our own lives and a decrease in things like emotional distress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, doubt, and just about any negative feeling I mentioned in the previous slide. So let's dig a little deeper. So, how do we change our thoughts and behaviors? I bring up the CBT model, which stands for Cognitive Behavior Therapy, because it's what I utilize with most individuals who report struggles with anxious thoughts and behaviors. CBT is a strong evidence-based therapy that, when applied, can decrease anxiety and improve time management along with other positive effects on daily life. Basically, CBT helps create and maintain coping skills so that when a negative belief about self or the world pops into our brains, we can challenge that thinking and eventually replace it with thinking that's more positive and accurate. So, how do we apply CBT techniques to daily life? I pulled this model from the Beck Institute online. As you may already know, Aaron Beck was one of the early founders of cognitive therapy. Suffice to say, he and a few fellow founders condensed what they knew into a convenient little chart such as the one on this slide. They suggested that we have automatic thoughts that pop into our brain when we are stressed or upset. These automatic thoughts are believed to cause reactions from us emotionally, which is what we feel, behaviorally, which is our actions, and physiologically, which is what's in our bodies. I can give you a personal example that involves a certain school's congested parking lots. When I was in school and working on campus, there were days when I would arrive late, and as many of us can attest, I would be lucky to find a parking spot in the lot that I wanted. But every now and then there would be a vacant spot available and I would make every effort to get to that spot. However, let's say someone else noticed the spot and they may have wanted it just as badly as myself and they were closer. So they get the spot. And I'm left feeling so angry or upset or sad. And I focus that energy onto the person who I perceived as having taken my quote unquote, my spot. My automatic thoughts are something along the lines of, how could they do that to me? Didn't they see me headed towards that spot? And then the reaction ensues. Emotionally, I'm feeling angry or offended. Physiologically, my heart is racing and my hands might be a little shaky. Behaviorally, I might be grumpy the rest of the morning. So, what do all these reactions have in common? They all stem from a perception that I was intentionally slighted, and the rest of my day is going to suffer. Now, let's decompress and unpack this. Do you think the human who got the parking spot instead of me was trying to take something away from me? Probably not. Truthfully, they may have not even seen me. They were likely just as anxious about being late as I was and were only focusing on getting to school or their job. So hopefully you can see the difference between the negative automatic thoughts and the positive ones. The automatic thoughts happen no matter what, but if they're negative, then we have the power to challenge them. If we take a moment to think about our emotional, behavioral, and physiological reactions, then we might discover the true motivator behind them. In this example, I likely experienced negative automatic thoughts about losing the parking spot because I was already feeling nervous or guilty about being late to work. If I had been on time that morning and there were multiple open spots, I may have not even thought twice about someone pulling into the one I had my eye on. Once I realized that I'm not really upset over the loss of the parking spot, but instead just worried about the consequences of being late, I can respond with appropriate reactions. Can you imagine how different my morning might be now that I understand where the negative thinking is stemming from? I can accept that there might be consequences for being late, and I can challenge myself to do better next time. Whenever I'm faced with a situation that makes me feel emotions I don't really care for, I try to make a mental note of that feeling and then plan healthy ways to avoid that feeling in the future. Yay, operant conditioning! You can apply this to almost any example, so let's explore a few more. Think about your own behaviors that you would like to see changed. Can you think of ways your thoughts might be influencing those behaviors? Let's look at test anxiety. Typically, the more we study for an exam, the more prepared we feel, and our expectations about failing a test we haven't even taken yet tend to decrease. However, what if my study skills are good and I still worry about failing a test? I may have already found study habits that work for me, like only studying in the mornings when my roommate is in class and the apartment is quiet. Or I might be someone who enjoys background noise and can study easily in the library or public area. I might have already figured out that I'm more apt to remember the material if I study for an hour a day, starting maybe 2 weeks before the test, versus not looking at the material until 2 nights before an exam. What if I've already got good study routines down and I still experience anxiety before an exam? Working with college students, I hear this a lot. Oftentimes, I have them list their study routines, and we can usually pinpoint some behaviors that might still cause or result in an increase in anxiety. I ask them to list a measurable behavior they want to change. In this example, we're working on decreasing test anxiety. We then explore the things that might be getting in the way of this. What are they eating? What are they drinking? Are they getting any physical exercise? Are they really practicing good self-care? Then it's time to set some goals. Can they set an alarm on their phone to remind them it's almost their study time? Will they put their phone on airplane mode so they can truly dedicate their time to studying? I like to follow up these goals with a reminder that having support can make a huge difference. Who can help support them in meeting their goal? Will they depend solely on their weekly counseling sessions to keep them accountable, or do they have a trusted friend who can let them know if they see them getting off track? And finally, I like to solidify the plan with asking how they'll know if they've met their goals. What behaviors will they see once they reach their goal? Will they see an increase in their GPA? Will they see a decrease in nervous habits such as biting fingernails or eating junk food? The most important thing to remember here is that we will likely not see our behaviors change independently. Oftentimes, it's not reasonable to expect behaviors to change if thinking patterns don't change, since CBT suggests the two go hand in hand. So let's spend a little more time on thinking patterns. As we've learned, sometimes things like test anxiety can be a result of our faulty thinking patterns, despite behaviors like practicing good study skills or engaging in self-care. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, sometimes test anxiety might be the result of a deeper fear of failure or disappointing others, or even disappointing ourselves. If we can navigate the chaos that is our working brain, we might uncover these deeper issues on occasion. If you find yourself still experiencing anxiety related to a daily task, despite your best behavioral efforts, you should consider examining your thoughts about the situation. Explore what thoughts pop into your brain when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. In what types of situations do you normally experience stress? Then consider what you would rather be thinking in those situations. Continuing with our current example of test anxiety, you might wish you could be thinking how confident you're feeling before a test instead of obsessing about failing the exam. Another example could be time management. You might find yourself feeling really stressed out because you have so much on your plate, which is really likely in the case for just about any college student. And instead of thinking about the things you haven't completed, you would prefer to feel a sense of accomplishment with the things that you have completed. This is exactly what reframing our thoughts means, and it's a huge part of CBT. So now that you know what you would rather be thinking in certain situations, you can set some goals to help you get there. And this is key. The best way to combat anxiety is by stacking up evidence to the contrary. If you're sitting in the classroom waiting for the professor to hand you the midterm exam, and you start thinking negative thoughts, you can challenge those negative thoughts with all the evidence you've been stacking up throughout the week. Focus on the facts. Remind yourself how much time and effort you put into studying for the exam. Remind yourself that you're not taking the exam on an empty stomach. Remind yourself that you've looked in the face of test anxiety in the past and you beat it over and over again. Many people call this positive self-talk, and it is so powerful. Doing all these things before an exam are wonderful examples of goals that you can set to see a difference in your thinking in daily life. Of course, this skill, just like anything worth having, takes time and practice. If you can practice positive self-talk, reframing your thoughts from negative to positive, and being mindful of the real reason behind your reactions, you will likely experience positive change in your thoughts and behaviors. Again, time and practice. If you find that you're not noticing changes in your thoughts and behaviors, or that you're struggling to develop goals, that's a-okay, because you have resources. It might be helpful to talk about these issues with a professional. Trained counselors and counseling interns can wade into the waters with you and offer assistance in reframing these negative thinking patterns. I'm going to discuss your resources at the end of the presentation, but for now, I'd like to discuss some coping strategies that can be paired with your new skills to help maximize your successful results. The first thing I want to discuss is hobbies. I'm going to switch over to another slide and then come back to this one. Some hobbies that come to mind include gardening or repotting plants, which, by the way, if you're good at this, email some tips to the staff at Student Counseling Services because we are a bunch of great thumbs. Other hobbies that can fit into our social distancing guidelines right now include cleaning or organizing spaces, painting, coloring. We've all seen those really cool adult coloring books. Trying new things. Even if it results in a Pinterest fail, you're still being productive with your time. Empowering someone, whatever that might look like to you. It might be posting a positive quote on social media, or it might be texting or calling old friends or coworkers just to check up on them. Another hobby could be empowering yourself. Make another attempt at something you've been putting off. Scroll through Student Counseling Services social media pages and watch all of our helpful and inspiring videos. And if my coworkers ask, will you tell them that I said that? Other interesting things that popped up while I was researching ways to fight boredom include things like some entities, like Ivy League schools, are offering free courses on various interesting topics right now. I just Googled this and it popped up. Another thing I think would be really cool is to journal what you're going through right now. I mean, we are literally history in the making, so how cool would it be to pass on your personal experiences with current events? One thing I do now is I set dates to FaceTime with my friend group and catch up. This helps me stay connected with other people during what can potentially be a very isolating time. So can you think of other hobbies that you have? Or maybe some hobbies you've been wanting to try but haven't had the free time. Here's your sign. Okay, So we've talked about the importance of hobbies in daily life, but another healthy coping mechanism is exercise. We all know the general benefits, feel better, look better, but exercise also has such positive effects on the brain and our energy levels. I have a stationary bike at home that I have strategically placed in front of my TV. I'm going to be watching my shows on the couch anyway, right? So why not get a little sweat in and help release those endorphins? There are lots of online fitness and yoga videos streaming right now for free on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sure many other social media sites. So, arguably even more beneficial than regular exercise is healthy food intake. I'm no Gordon Ramsay, but I have tested out some yummy new quarantine-influenced recipes to help keep me energized so that I can finish all tasks that need my attention. And no, I'm not talking about quarantinis. I don't want to just have the energy to complete obligations or responsibilities. I also want to have the energy to take care of myself. So things like junk food, sweets, those might give me sugar spikes that get me through what could be yet another Zoom meeting. But those types of fuel aren't going to be very helpful when I want to go pull the weeds out of my garden or weed eat around the house. And no, unfortunately, those aren't metaphors. That's just country living. Either way, I should probably fit some fruits, protein, and veggies into my diet to help my energy and mental health. So, lastly, but definitely not least, self-care is a little different from engaging in hobbies. Self-care is all about the things that rejuvenate you. These are things you can do to mentally energize yourself and help you get ready to handle the next day and the day after that. This can look like bubble baths, practicing positive self-care, which you now know how to do, clearing the mind with meditation, spending some time with yourself, looking at pictures of tiny little baby animals, or maybe watching videos of people tripping or falling in public, if that's your thing, which it is definitely my thing. Or, hey, if you don't think it's funny to watch people tripping in public, you can just scroll through social media pages of whatever makes you laugh. Other examples of self-care include expressing your gratitude, bringing out your inner child, unplugging from the world for a little while, keeping track of your accomplishments, and I bet there's more than you think there are, developing regular sleep routines, you know who you are, deep breathing, going for walks, or even simply learning how to say no to someone so that you can say yes to better mental health. I say simply, but saying no to others is actually a whole other skill in and of itself. Just the same though, it can be learned. So can you think of anything else? What helps you unwind and rejuvenate? It's really important to view self-care as a priority instead of a luxury, especially with today's world where we're facing major changes on a weekly, if not daily basis. We should really try to fit in self-care daily. Why are all these other things more important than your happiness or your sanity? They're not. But I digress. I really just want to applaud you for wanting to learn more about how to change your thoughts and behaviors. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope throughout this little mini workshop you had some ideas about new techniques you can try in your own lives. Don't forget that your mental health is a key factor in determining how well you apply these techniques. Are you willing to devote the time and effort into making sure you are truly okay amidst the challenges of today? To reiterate, we do have the power to change our thoughts and behaviors. It just takes some work. If you're struggling with time management or test anxiety, consider all of the challenges you might be facing right now. Are you truly making enough time in your busy schedule to adequately study the material? Are you eating well and getting in some physical exercise? Are you feeling socially or spiritually fulfilled and connected? Are you practicing self-care on a regular basis? If you can truthfully answer yes to all of these questions, but you're still struggling, there might be a deeper issue to explore. So again, if you find that the pieces in your life still just aren't quite fitting together, don't forget to utilize student counseling services. I mean, we do it all. Test anxiety, time management, study skills, negative or faulty thinking, or behavior patterns, trauma, sexual assault, substance use, roommate concerns, grief and loss. And the list goes on and on because it's absolutely endless. The best news, we have dedicated our professional lives to the chance to sit and talk with you. We are open for business and devoted to being there for you, global pandemic and all. Our office is located on the first floor of Traditions North and open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We also offer an after-hours crisis line that can be reached by calling our normal number 254-968-9044. In light of current events, we are also offering virtual sessions and would be more than happy to discuss how to utilize technology to virtually meet with you anywhere in Texas. We're also pushing online videos such as this one on our Tarleton Wellness YouTube channel and our Tarleton Wellness Instagram and Facebook pages. So keep an eye out for those because they truly are helpful and inspirational. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Bye.